I will tell you, you're not going to have a war with me, and you're not going to have a third world war with me. That I can tell you. I will tell you, you're not going to have a war with me, and you're not going to have a third world war with me. That I can tell you.
Well, hello there. How are you going today? Hope everything is just fine and dandy in your world. Thanks for joining me. And it's time to take another wander through the strange realm we find ourselves in. And of course, guys, don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything on the videos. This is all for entertainment purposes only. And it's also for you to get your own perspective, gather your own information, and come to your own conclusions. Let's jump in.
This is what the Mexican police have to deal with. This is their weekday of the cartel rolling up with things like this. A turret. An armored turret in the back of a truck. This is what it's not like some guy with a 9mm. This is their Monday to Friday. How are these guys not seeing stuff like this and just immediately quitting?
Wow. Wouldn't like to rock up to that, would you? I mean, my first thought was, like, what are the walls of the truck made of? Because it looks like it was made, right? So they can drive along and shoot out the back. I don't know. Maybe they take it out of there, but you'd want the whole truck to be armored, right? Otherwise, they'd just shoot you through those thin truck walls. I don't know. But yeah, what the other thing is, what happened to Mexico? Remember, what was it, a week, two ago? I mean, it all seems so far away, right? There's so much coming at us this year. It's insane. But remember, the cartels took over and they were running around blowing everything up in Mexico. Whatever happened to that?
Most insane internet rabbit holes that are oddly convincing, part 6-7. Jet fuel is a hoax, and airplanes don't actually burn fuel to fly, but rather use an energy source that's gonna have you questioning everything. Just a fun theory for entertainment purposes only. So this is a plane. It flies in the air using jet fuel, or so we're told. A typical Boeing 747 carries about 64,000 gallons or 242,000 liters of fuel. That's a lot. A literal metric ton. Actually, about 193 metric tons to be exact. But let me ask you something that you've probably never thought of before. Where the hell do they put it? Like, this is what a 60,000 gallon water tank looks like. That's a person for scale. It's massive. We're told that more than this amount of fuel is stored in the wings of the plane, and that part's not a myth, that's actually what they tell us. And the question people are asking is, where? How exactly do 64,000 gallons fit in these wings? Like, this entire tank is really squeezed into those thin sheets of metal? It just visually doesn't make any sense. And then think about the time that it takes for an airplane to refuel. When you're at an airport, you usually don't see the fuel pump connected to the plane for more than a couple minutes at a time. A regular car takes only about 12 gallons of fuel, and let's say 2 minutes to fill up. Even if these jet fuel pumps pumped at 10 times the rate of a regular car gas pump, do the math, and it should take around 9 hours to fill just half of the plane's 64,000 gallon capacity. Yet we somehow never see a plane getting pumped for more than a couple minutes, if even at all. Sure, they'll tell you these jet fuel pumps are actually way more powerful than that, and can pump fuel at a rate hundreds of times faster than car gas pumps, all going through this hose with a 1 to 2 inch inner diameter, which is actually how wide they are on the inside. Go search it up. All of this fuel which goes to power the turbines, and this is where it starts getting fun. Because here's what a turbine from a typical airline jet looks like, pretty standard. And here's the ceiling of the Hoysala temple in India, an ancient temple that is said to have been built around 1150 AD, but some argue it could be much older than that. Now, ancient India has some of the wildest temple architecture and design anywhere on earth, like Kailash, a whole ass temple that was carved into the bedrock of the cliff around it, an absolute marvel of ancient engineering. The pillars found inside these temples are so symmetrical, so insanely detailed, they look like they're 3D printed, made hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, and also appear to have been made for much more than just aesthetic purpose, because the engineering behind these pillars is nothing short of miraculous, with moving stone parts that can be physically rotated like they're part of a machine. Some of them aren't even connected to the ground, and just how how on earth did they pull that off? Meanwhile, others can fully rotate and spin around. Like, we're talking stone pillars built over 800 years ago, engineered like modern machinery. And I don't see any reason why anyone would go through the painstaking lengths of making stone pillars that can spin unless they had a functional purpose. Oh look, here's one with a stone ball inside of it. Just how? Anyway, these ancient Indian temples really deserve their own video, which I'll cover some other time, but for now, let's focus on the pillars. These pillars are so meticulously designed with incredible laser-like detail and precision, near perfect circular symmetry that look like they were made with modern technology, and also happen to be in a similar shape of an airplane turbine engine. This is where we go a little off the rails. Remember, entertainment purposes only, right? Many fringe theories state that ancient temples and buildings like these were actually power plants that provided energy for past civilizations, like the pyramids of Egypt in the Giza power plant theory, and the same is thought of the temples of ancient India like Kailash and Hoysala, which use specific ancient mechanisms and esoteric knowledge to harness atmospheric energy from the sky to power their ancient societies. I told you this was gonna get weird. Well, now it's being said that same technology is actually being used in modern airplanes, which only use the jet fuel to take off, and once they reach a certain altitude, they tap into this atmospheric energy to stay lifted and move fast, which they would have better access to because of how high planes fly, and that's where this energy is supposedly found. Tartaria technology, Nikola Tesla technology, zero-point energy being used right under our noses, all while taking money out of our pockets with expensive plane tickets, blaming it on the copious amount of jet fuel they allegedly need, when they're actually just using the free, unlimited atmospheric energy harnessed by our ancestors. Absolutely insane, I know. But listen, a Boeing 747 can weigh up to 220 tons, while an Airbus 380 can go up to 600 tons. Have you ever stopped to think about how much of a modern miracle it is for a 600-ton metal behemoth to fly through the air for 16 plus hours on end? And all it takes is 4 of these jet turbines, for how powerful they are, aren't even really used anywhere else except for aviation. But even so, someone has to make these engines, and surely it would be much too difficult to keep something like this a secret with hundreds of companies all manufacturing them, right? Well, actually no, because only 3 companies own 99% of all turbine manufacturing in the world: GE Aerospace, Pratt & Whitney, and Rolls-Royce. Any other manufacturer is in some way associated with these big 3. And of course, all of these companies have the usual suspects, Vanguard and BlackRock, as their top shareholders, the 2 mega companies that own everything, who control the 3 companies that essentially power every airline on the planet, also making it almost impossible for anyone else to make their own commercial turbines, with regulations, gatekeepers, certifications, and import controls, to keep their oligopoly in power and free from independent producers to keep this technology as close to their chest as possible. Like, are 4 of these turbines really enough to keep a 600-ton airplane suspended in the air, traveling at hundreds of miles an hour for hours on end, propelled by just the air? I mean, maybe they are. This is what internet rabbit holes are all about after all. Roast me in the comments if you disagree.
Yeah, the airplane conspiracy, we have covered it before, but yeah, what do you think? Let me know your thoughts. Do they use fuel? Do they not? Do they use ether energy and just fuel to land and take off? Do you work in the aeronautics industry or at an airport? Do you have any info on this? Let us know. But yeah, the main bit I liked about that video was the temples in India. And, it's interesting that, India is full of what we would call Tartarian buildings as well. The temples in India seem to look different, don't they? They're not Tartarian, they're very intricate. A lot of them look like they've got, Vimanas on the top of them, flying machines. And of course, all the temples with these moving parts. Crazy. I know in Tibet they have prayer wheels, but they are generally made of wood, as far as I know, and people go past and spin them. So it's might be the same kind of theory. Maybe they're fashioned off the Indian ones. But what do you think of these Indian temples? Do you think that they were actual machines? Are they flying machines that somehow got turned to stone? Or maybe were they built of stone and they were just, utilizing basically electromagnetics, right, to levitate? I mean, I don't know, because, all those parts, that was all stone. Or do you think that they were laser cut? Or, could they print stone back then? Was it some kind of geopolymer mold? I mean, there's a lot of options, I think, but the main question is really what were they for? What do you think that the Indian temples were for. What are they? Because like I said, they're completely different to the Tartarian buildings. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Y'all check this out. Tell me what y'all think.
Why don't we see any land when we're looking down at the ocean from the space station?
Well, because you're over top of ocean.
Okay, well, don't you think they could be fooling us with this picture?
Okay, I give you this.
Wait, watch the picture.
I know that.
Watch the picture.
I know
Watch
that they
the picture.
airbrushed some stuff.
It's not
up.
airbrushed. This is us in our front yard on a solar panel, and we tricked you, showing you how easy. We have zero budget. They have $65 million a day, and I tricked you. What about this? NASA says, these are new planets. Okay. Would you believe? Why would you believe that?
Why wouldn't you?
Because they're frying pans. They're the bottom of frying pans. Again, zero budget. Zero budget. Here are 4 moons. And before the hand picks up the moon, tell me, is it sphere or not a sphere? Is that a sphere? Quick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it looks like a sphere, but it's actually a half a cup. How about this one? Is this one a sphere?
You're showing us half a sphere then on all of them.
It looks like a sphere, but it's not either. It's flat. What I'm saying is, first, even if they were all spheres, it doesn't dictate the shape of the Earth. I've been lying to you this entire time. I'm on the space station. Okay? Prove me wrong. I'm on the space station.
And I'm in Hollywood right now too.
Yeah,
so
but that's a painting. That's not even a real picture.
You're floating, Dave.
Look here. The Earth is the globe. Here's the proof. I got this cartoon over here. All right.
Well, did you get those ones right? I mean, it just shows how easy it is to deceive, right? And that's the world we live in. It's a visual world, right? Most of the information we're getting is visual, right? All the screens, they're all around us, showing us all this visual imagery of things that clearly are not necessarily true. I mean, look what we just saw. Look at NASA. But I mean, it goes with everything. Everything you see on the mainstream, especially the news and the entertainment, that none of it's real. I mean, look at movies. Movies, like literally at least 50% of all movies is just fake. It's just put there for the illusion. But then we watch, shows on the same thing on the television, like the news, and we suddenly think they're real because they've got a different name.
Have you seen this?
Abram's descendants are the ones who have the right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean,
Really?
maybe it would be.
What do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that. If you believe the theology that you've just explained to me.
Would we do that all over the world?
Well,
and everybody
this is the only country in the world that you've said has this covenant with God, that this people have a moral and legal right to the land.
But there are people who may not have bloodlines, but who have converted to Judaism. Are they going to be able to live here? Are you going to kick them out?
By your standards, they can't live here.
No,
because you just
never
told
said.
me
No,
that they have a right to live here because God gave them the land because they're the descendants of Abram.
The descendants of Abraham. But if they're the spiritual descendants of Abraham and they've now decided that they're converting to Judaism, then do they have a right to live in Israel?
Since you began this conversation by asking me, did I think they had a right to come here?
Yeah, that's
and
what
my question
Zionism
was, on what basis do they have the right?
Yeah.
And you said because God granted it to them.
And I also said because that there should be a land where Jews can live in peace and safety.
And I asked you what a Jew was, and you couldn't answer it. You said
I didn't
it partly is religious, but doesn't have to be. It's partly genetic, but it doesn't have to be. And so that you can see why I'm confused.
I think I was very clear.
Bibi's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
in what sense?
How do we know
that? Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
Do you?
He doesn't. No one does. That's the point.
But
so how do we know that he has any connection to this land at all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language, the Bible, the land.
His ancestors didn't. He doesn't practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank, 50% of the population is Jewish. 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 50% who, through genetic testing, we can know their families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have been Christians for 2,000 years. They have less of a right to the land than someone whose ancestors, the only thing we know about them is they lived in Latvia or Poland. They're Eastern European. How does that work?
How indeed. Yes, love him or hate him, that was Tucker Carlson. And of course, this is the thing, right? In everyone, and we don't really know if Tucker's good or bad. We really don't. But if you judge him as bad, then you won't listen to anything he says, right? And then you'd miss out on some good points he was making there. I think they were very good points because this is what the people from Israel, God, I don't even know what I can say online because these are the people that we can't speak about, right? Because it's all twisted against us. But interesting questions because that's what they claim. That's why they claim the whole state of Izzy was able to be formed because they were God's chosen people, right? The people of El, and they deserved it, and it was their covenant and all this kind of stuff. Clearly, the people in Gaza did not share that same covenant, right? But, when you look into it, like they said, Benny Boy, he is not an Israeli. He wasn't born there. He wasn't born in an Israel society, right? And he's got no ancestry. He's not religious. He's not even really a practicing Jew, but he is a practicing Zionist, right? Um, and this is the thing. So it just shows you it's all just theater. And then if you talk to the Orthodox Jews, they'll tell you that the Jewish people are not allowed to have their promised land until the Messiah returns. And of course, that's what Judaism is. They all believe that the Messiah hasn't returned. And we're told that Christianity is the break-off, right? They're the ones who believe Jesus was the Messiah. That's where it split. And then a bigger picture is Christianity and is Islam come from Abraham as well. They're all Abrahamic. So what does this mean? Like you might find that half the Islamic people out there have a direct bloodline to Abraham and none of the people living in Israel. So it's just all such an illusion, right? But let me know your thoughts.
Okay, things are getting a little serious. Multiple countries are now having to take significant measures to reduce fuel usage because of the war. Sri Lanka have just declared that every Wednesday going forward will be a day off. That's pretty wild. So the foreseeable future in the country, Wednesdays are just treated as a holiday where public institutions like schools, universities, and most government offices will be closed. And they're not the only ones. Thailand's government are now urging citizens to wear short sleeves instead of suits to reduce the reliance on air conditioning. In Myanmar, you can now only use a private vehicle every second day. Bangladesh have introduced rolling blackouts, and South Africa have done this. Oh, sorry, that's way before the war. Some government offices in the Philippines have instructed staff to work from home at least one day a week. And similarly in Vietnam, they are urging the public to try and work from home. And when they do have to travel to get to work, they're urging them to use bicycles, carpooling, or public transport to get there. And this only gets worse the longer this war drags out. The big question is, will more countries soon be forced to take similar measures?
Well, that to me looks a lot like the implementation of their order of the new world, right? Basically restricting all, you know, restricting goods and services like oil and petrol, and then it'll be food rationing, right? And electricity, unless it's green solar panels probably. And then, when does food come into it? So, he sort of said the big question is who else will follow. But I think the big question is, what is the real point of this war? We've had a lot of narratives put out there at us, but what's really going on behind this war? What's the real thing? Because, what they're showing on the mainstream is that America's winning. What they're showing on non-Western countries and, alternative media is that Israel is definitely losing and America has lost a lot of infrastructure and money. But is this true or is it all theater? What do you think? What do you think is the real goal of this war? What are they trying to do here? How are they trying to change the structure of our society? Because that's what wars always are. And of course, there is money in there because all wars are bankers' wars, but the economy looks like it's about to collapse. Are they maybe they are doing it to try and save the economy, right? But only for themselves because they can't do it for long because the cost of living is so high now because they've printed so much money and created so much debt that even with a war, it's only going to fill their pockets, not the pockets of the people. And without we, the people, they have no economy. So what's the real aim here? Let me know your thoughts.
All lands were connected. When the center north tree reached the sky, it was destroyed, creating the new surface of the earth. And the Sahara Desert was an ocean. Europe, Italy, Africa, Ethiopia, Persia, and Hispania, Spain. All these empires and rulers knew of the ocean that ran through the Sahara Desert. What was kept secret was the event of the Great Settling, land created by the debris of the trees separating, forming the continents. Everything looks wrong about this 1482 map of Africa that shows its land spreading out to Madagascar and across the ocean to South America. Even connecting to Atlantis. As shown on this upside-down map, Africa and Spain is on the left, and America is on the right side. Mount Olympus is in the middle of Atlantis. Flip the map, and you'll see where the demigod continents were connected to the mainlands before the event of the Great Settling separated them. Before the event of the Great Settling separated them. This is the birth of the four empire continents, Atlantis, Lemuria, Ethiopia, and Mu. This is the birth of the four empire continents, Atlantis, Lemuria, Ethiopia, and Mu. The four empire continents, Atlantis, Lemuria, Ethiopia, and Mu.
Interesting map. I've definitely seen maps with a big ocean or sea, or ocean, I guess, where the ocean goes in basically through Mauritania on the west coast of Africa. I've seen maps like that, but never one where it's gone all the way through and it's separated into two lands. Interesting. That was an old map, 1400s. I mean, yeah, that could be true because when you look at these old maps and you go back to the 1500s, etc., you see the lands changing. They're always changing. They're getting there's oceans like in Africa. It showed an ocean through the middle there, and now it's all land, right? So it seems like the middle has risen, or the oceans have dropped. But then there's other places like North America has lost a lot of land. South America has lost a lot of land as well. Like the oceans have risen. So there's something else obviously going on here, right? It's not just an ocean rising and falling. Clearly, the lands have got to be moving as well by the looks of all these maps. But I mean, it just shows us, right? History is his story, right? History is just a set of lies agreed upon. And that second landmass he was calling Atlantis, on the only real time I've seen something that big is in the Monte's Planisphere map from 1597, and that's Japan. That's the land that we now have Japan from. Japan's just the remnants of that big land. It was big, and it was right where he was showing it between America and Europe. I'm just trying to think what side is China. Yeah, so interesting, but again, it just shows us that this realm is ever changing, right? Like they try and say that there's climate change and it's all your fault, evil humans. But all the climate ever does is change.
Gotta watch this.
I have patients who
have been smoking for 45 years and they're living a healthy life, and they say it's because I smoke. And obviously we laugh about it because we all agree that it's not true. So why did this one case move you so?
Actually, let me stop you right there. Probably it's because he smoked that he's doing so well.
Okay, we need to back up. How do we get there?
Well, I have a whole chapter in Gut Check looking at the healthiest, longest living people. And one of the unique features of most of the blue zones is that particularly the men are heavy smokers. And the smoking, actually the nicotine in cigarettes, is one of the best mitochondrial uncouplers that's ever been discovered. And we've looked at this through the wrong lens. We said, wow, what other healthy lifestyle things are these guys doing that's preventing smoking from harming them? In fact, we should have looked at it the other way. What is it about these people who are smokers that allows them to live to 105, 110 years old? And when you do that, then you say, okay, smoking was good for them. Why don't we see the oxidative stress that smoking, we all know, occurs? Why don't we see the cancers in these people? And it's because the rest of their diet facilitates the absorption of the oxidative stress in these guys.
Well, there you go. Are you a smoker? How long have you been smoking? You know, do your grandparents smoke? Are they really old? Do you know any old people that are doing pretty well in the smokers? Because it's interesting, right? It's very interesting. There's a war on tobacco, and there has been since what, the 70s, 80s at least. In Australia, I think we have the most expensive tobacco in the world. It's literally $100 plus for a pouch of roll your own tobacco, which you can get for $5 in Europe, $10 in America. So but there's a war, right? Like that they're trying to, you can't smoke anywhere anymore. Is this the reason why? And of course, most of you would know that during the CVID days, people who smoked were not getting the Rona, and they actually used nicotine to help people with the Rona, like patches, right? They didn't take in cigarettes, but patches. So, you know, if you're interested in looking into this, you can get patches. Patches, by the way, also are a good antidote against snake venom. Interesting. Remember that video about the Rona having that in it? Very interesting, right? So, yeah, do you smoke? Are you going to take it up? But, you know, he did mention there that you had to have a good diet as well, right? I think, you know, and if you're smoking and eating junk food, then that's probably not good. But if you've got a good diet, then sounds like you should be all right. But I would also say smoke organic. If you're going to smoke, make sure it's, even if you do smoke already, switch to organic, because it's the chemicals that they spray all through the tobacco and all over the papers that does all of the damage. That's the real problem. But because it's true what he says, you know, you see little old Asian men all the time smoking, you know, people up in Nepal smoke all through Asia. Like the men are smoking everywhere, you know, and they're not looking sick, and they're old dudes. You see a lot in Europe as well, Eastern Europe. So there's something to it. But of course, let me know what you think. And please don't believe what I say or anything in these videos. This is all for entertainment purposes only. And thank you for spending some time with me. We've come to the end of another one. Please, if you enjoyed this video, give me a like, share it around, hype it up, and leave me your comments. Let me know what you think. What was your favorite video? What did you learn something new from? And most importantly, stay awesome, because you are, and I'll talk to you on the next upload. Bye for now.
Are you?
Un libro.